Hallo, hallo, hallo. All right, welcome everybody. Um, Today I'm going to do the tutorial on how to generally build maps in the generator. I'll start off from nothing and like a clean slate of what you'll have a look at if you just open the game or Houdini. Um, I intended this in a way that you just um, kind of generate a map alongside me. So there's no, this is not, I'm not going to speed run this stuff. So this is probably going to take like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I don't know how long it's going to take. Let's be honest. Um, and then the idea is that you can do the same stuff I'm doing, play along with it kind of, and then whenever you have questions, feel free to ask them. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Um, I that's kind of why I wanted to do this in the stream rather than just a tutorial, so it can be a little bit more interactive. So if you have anything you struggle with, I can kind of hone in on that specifically, and try to answer the questions. Um, though, just to clarify a little bit, I have this generator for like 10 days, and I've not played with Houdini at any time before, so I don't know like 90% of the stuff that Houdini does. If you have any questions um, for Houdini specifically, maybe ask Baldrax. He's in the Talespire and the generator Discord servers. He actually works with Houdini and he probably knows a lot more stuff like all these buttons down on the side, all these buttons up here. I don't know what they're doing. You don't need them to generate a map either. So it's been working out for me just fine without anything. But I have no clue what they do. I hope you all installed the program just fine and it kind of works. If not, you'll see this in a second if you did a mistake, because right at the beginning we'll just start off with something you can't do if you haven't installed the mod properly. This stuff you can just click away. So this is Houdini once you open it. This is a clean slate, nothing is on there. I hope ideally yours looks identical to this. This is the general viewport where you can have a look at your program, and then up here you can modify it a node that is generated down here. So to start, um, we um, we will generate the Talespire terrain node. This is kind of everything. This is what you would call the mod. Yeah, no mods or whatever. You can just click that away. It's something we need to do later on is create a biome, and it tells us we don't have one yet, but obviously we don't. So this is generally is a node. A node is kind of a modifier that modifies something, and then you can have outputs out of those and link them to other nodes and then connect them in a way. For example, you can add a node that enlarges it. For the Talespire mod, uh, this is the only node you need. So in generally, we don't add anything here. You could add more node. I don't know what any of them does, but you could add more nodes here, but there's no need. Like at all times, it doesn't matter how complex it gets. This is the only node you need, and I don't think you can actually add anything else here, and it'll impact the mod. The mod is this one node. So just add a Talespire terrain node. That's basically how you start off every time. Um, it's what everything does. It automatically already has some stuff included. For example, it automatically generates kind of a height field. That's what this white stuff is called. It's a two-dimensional plane, so it's kind of infinitely thin. And obviously, it already has some modifiers on it. That's why it looks so uh, bumpy. So when you open this node, then up here, you always, if you click on a node, you get the kind of the modifiers for that node, how you can change that. So up here, terrain size, obviously, don't mess with that. Ideally, just leave it as is. It doesn't really matter. Oh, thanks for the follow, Baldrax. And then, so this is the terrain size, so you can change this if you want to make the map smaller or bigger. This also perfectly coincides with the terrain size in Talespire in blocks. So 100 by 100 is 100 tiles by 100 tiles. Um, and all right, I hope you have a great breakfast. Oh yeah, you're American, right? I would assume. Um, Anyways, Uh, so this is kind of the terrain size. So 100 by 100 is what I currently use mostly, but that already generates pretty large maps as it's 100 tiles by 100 tiles, so it can get laggy. Just for the sake of this demonstration, I'll use a slightly smaller map just because it reduces the loading times the computer has, and it animates it faster and generates the terrain a lot quicker. So we'll just use let's say a 50 by 50. It's a smaller terrain. Um, and then the enable water stuff, we don't need it now. You can basically just kind of generate the water. It doesn't generate the water in game. It just has a few minor things that it can impact, as well as show you the water levels. So, for example, if you would um, create a river or try to create a river, then you could check if, and then you can type in kind of the water level here. You can change it and put it up or go or put it down. And that would help you if you match it to the one you want to put at in Talespire to see maybe if the islands have the right sizes or whatnot. Though this is mostly purely visual, I'll come to one aspect where you can actually use this later on. But that's more advanced stuff. Like generally, at the beginning especially, you don't need it. Then here you can show the height field terrain, which means it's kind of the terrain that we are going to build our map on. Display tiles, then it's going to display the individual tiles. We're not there yet. Obviously, it doesn't have any tiles yet. Display props displays the props as well. This might take some time to display because it's very big if you have a lot of assets to display. Then down here are the export options. I guess we get to them when we export. I have never used that. And then here you have to put in, if you haven't done that already, the library, the library where in Steam, the Steam library of Talespire. If you didn't do that, then it can't access, I would assume it can't access all the um, individual props and tiles and doesn't know what they are. So you kind of have to tell it where all the assets are. Um, and then here is a force recook thing, which is supposed to, I think, like recalculate everything. So if there's something not showing up that's supposed to show up, you can maybe press that and it'll recalculate everything, and maybe then the bug is fixed if it was just a calculation problem that it didn't properly do. And then here in the middle are the three main buttons. So and you kind of go down this menu from top to bottom. So you first try to define the terrain size. You technically can change them later on, though. Let's say I wouldn't recommend it because then it has a lot of calculation to do and it might fuck up a little bit. So try to fix this early on. The max tile stack, you can, like 15 is very high, I would think. It basically means if you have a very vertical terrain, then how many tiles would it stack up vertically on top of each other? So I normally set this to like 3 or something like that, because normally if it's a very steep terrain, you would just put the cliffs there anyways, so you don't even see a huge stack of terrains. Um, so that's why I put this on 3. If I'll just try to conserve as many tiles, use as little tiles and props as I can. So just putting this down a little bit reduces the number of tiles that are going to be generated, and they're going to be invisible anyways if you just put cliffs anywhere where it gets deep. So maybe put like 3 to 5. Maybe I think 15 is a little too much right there. And so after you fix the top one here, we go to the first button, which is Edit Terrain. And if you click on that, you can see that down here, everything has changed. So this is now the part where you edit the terrain. So we can change the shape of this. That's kind of what the part is here. There's some nice notes from Baldrax up here. And then generally here, it's brown, kind of brown, like the tiles, ground, earth, whatever. So basically it says make your terrain. So, and these hints are generally very helpful. So it literally means generate your terrain. Leave the first node, leave the second node here. I generally don't touch them. And then in this entire brown box, you can generate whatever you want to. And at the end, the output needs to go in here again. So right now, there's just a very, very simple height field noise generator. And if we click on one of the nodes, it's going to pop up the menu up here of each node. It doesn't matter which node it is. It's always going to put up a node and information up there. So if we click on the height field noise, which is a very traditional node to use, like I use it quite a lot, it just generates this height field. Oh yeah, really quick, if you have this blue marker on here, you can click kind of these little markers. I don't know what the red one does. I think it freezes it so it doesn't change anymore. Well, I know that the yellow one means suppress or bypass, meaning that the input that comes in from up here instantly just moves through and don't like whatever this node normally would do gets suppressed or bypassed, and it just keeps going. I wouldn't use it like later on. It's just something where you can maybe check the difference. Oh yeah, what's the difference between this? Like if I turn this node on and off, and you can clearly see difference. Kind of that thing. I would assume is kind of handy. But in general, it's a more niche thing to do. What is really handy is the blue logo. The blue is always you can only look out of. It's kind of the which vision is displayed here. So for example, if a base height field up here, I don't know why this is so jittery normally. Well, is it just shows the height field, and then we put the noise on it, and then it obviously gets noisy. And so you can always check kind of which, for example, there we have some coloring. So whichever one is blue is the one you're kind of looking out of, the one that is displayed in the viewport, which is normally very handy. Though there is a very important distinction to make that if you click on one, you can manipulate it and look out of a different one. Like we're still looking out of the one down here where you get the colors on top, but we are manipulating this one up here. And the manipulation you get from the glowing, right? And if I click on this one, it glows yellow around. That means that's the one I'm modifying. But you can look out of a different one than the one you're modifying from, which is very important and very handy. So you can maybe look at out of a modifier all the way at the bottom and modify something all the way at the top, and then you can kind of see the impact that the node has all the way down the line. So then we can start here. Normally, and generally, I would start out as looking out of the node that you're changing. And this is a normal noise load. So it has an input of a very flat height field, and it generates some noise over it, so it gets a little bit hilly. Then the center noise is kind of makes it so that the average height is 0. So it goes, if you see here, like it goes a little bit down and a little bit up. If you turn that off, it just goes up. It's not really important because later on it doesn't matter how high the height field is. If it's just floating higher or lower, it doesn't really make a difference. And then the two most important parts in a noise to change up if you want to is the amplitude and the element size. So if you turn up the amplitude, this is a little excessive, but it kind of makes it bumpier or less bumpy, right? 1 is very low, 5 is a little bit bumpy, 50 is quite bumpy, and 100 is overkill. And if you go 500, it's bonkers, right? So there you can generate, do you want gentle hills or do you want to have a steep mountain? Here's kind of where you can change the amplitude of it. And then the second is how large is each individual noise. So if I turn this up a bit, all you're going to see is that you're going to have the noise gets very large, so there's just one big hill. Well, when I turn this way down, it's going to generate like very intricate small bumps. And now, depending on what you want and depending on how large the map is, you can want different terrain sizes. You can so in general, I would probably start with something. Maybe 50 is a little bit too large. Something like a gentle hill, right? Maybe something like this is all right. Um, and now we already have a decent. I'll make this nice and neat because otherwise it can get messy later on. Um, so now you have a terrain that looks decent. Um, Now, for example, if you want to have a river in a specific spot, then this won't work because it's just going to rate random noise, right? If you can adjust this noise a little bit if you go into the viewport and press space, what do you call it, enter. Um, no, what is the button called? Well, the large one where you go into the new line. I don't fucking remember right now. You can actually draw around the noise field. So you can kind of get like, okay, this mountain looks kind of nice, so I want this hill in there. Oh, there's a nice hill here. So um, enter. Yeah, I think it's even called enter in English. I'm I'm bonkers right now. Anyways, so you can kind of slide around a little bit and then press escape and you go back to the viewport. And so you can kind of maybe jiggle around, see what what is enter return. Yeah, that's what it's called. Um, and kind of find a nice noise field that speaks to you. But if you want to have a river in here, you can't force it, right? You can't force it. Oh, I want to have this perfect river and then a lake right next to it and whatnot. You can't really force noise to do that because noise is random, and it's going to be kind of a pain um, to force it somewhere. So what you can do is instead go or whenever you right click, you can add a new node. But if you see here, there are like way too fucking many nodes. If you click on all like that, you can even scroll down. That's way too many nodes. So what you generally do, if you know which node you want, is just type like start typing, and you can search for one. So generally, what you could do, for example, is get a height field paint, and what that does, and we drag the input in there. And now what this does is now it allows us to draw on the. If we now press enter again, um, we can draw on here as much as we want. I do not know why this displays this holographically. I'm very confused by that, but ideally it should not. Oh, I know why. Because we have this turned on. And that shows us the output at the end. So if you press U, by the way, you go out one menu. But let's go. So now it's just one height field, which is the input here is one height field, and we can draw on that. Um, and it doesn't do anything but draw in red. The color doesn't really matter, but um, up here you can reset the strokes, meaning it deletes whatever mask you've drawn. Recache strokes is sometimes needed if you, for example, would now change. So right now the most nodes, like the noise node, constantly update the input. So if you change something upstream, for example, make the field larger, it's gonna create a larger noise field instantly as well. It constantly looks for new input and changes. If you make it smaller, it automatically makes a smaller noise field. If you make it bigger, it gets bigger. Kind of it always flows. Where a paint field is, so for one of the few, if not the only one, there are one or two other ones which don't auto update. So if you, for example, would now enlarging the height field up here, this mask doesn't get larger. You have to press recache strokes, and then it would update it and would also increase its size, but it doesn't continuously do that. Um, you can also tap Y in the viewport and it will toggle only viewing the active network or the entire world. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know shortcuts, but that's very interesting. Yeah, so you can press Y and then you also just toggle the active network, so it wouldn't have shown the other one. I didn't even know that. I normally just go back and turn it off. As I said, I'm not no expert in Houdini. I'm just trying to learn this generator. So now that we have this height field. Here you can change how strong you want to draw. So if you turn this a little bit down and press enter again, you just draw very lightly. If you turn this up, it's a lot colorful. The blur sharpen makes it so that it gets blurry around the outsides. Oh no, that's the soft edge. Like now it has a very sharp edge. But if you turn it to 1, you have a softer edge. Oh, it works better if it's a little bit larger. Like it generates a little bit softer of an edge. Um, so what we can do now is draw the river we wanted to make, right? So let's say this is a small map, so you just if you scroll wheel, you can change the size. Let's put this to 1. Um, and here the paint mode is currently on replace. So whatever you draw, it's going to replace whatever was drawn underneath it. So if I now turn this down and draw here again, it's going to overwrite what was there before. If I turn it to 0, it's going to kind of act as a delete thingy. I was like, well, I've played around it quite a lot for the last 10 days. Like I've been on this stuff almost all day. But yeah, thanks. I think I'm decent at very limited things. I think the program can do like a billion things I have no clue of, like this stuff, whatever this is, or this is, I don't know what it is. Um, but yeah, thank you. So in general, you can overwrite. So I don't think there is even a delete button. It's more just put this to 0 and then put this on replace. But there are also other modes. For example, you can have this on 0.5, and then you can, if you now I released the mouse click. If I draw on it again, it's going to add 0.5 to the 0.5 previously. So look, if I here it's 0 plus 0.5, so it's 0.5, but as soon as I touch this, it goes up to 1. So you can kind of add over a certain area points. That does the add version. The multiply obviously multiplies, so it multiplies everything times 0.5, so it kind of halves whatever value was there before it. And if I put this to 2, it's going to double whatever value was there before it, whatever multiply does. Maximum takes I think the maximum value out of the area. I don't actually use those two, but replace, add, and multiply are very helpful. Because they're especially replace and add are like there's some mask where you just want to do one or the other, so it's kind of handy you can switch those, and if you want to just reset everything or redraw some stuff, just go to replace and put it on 0 and you're done. And then down here you can, with a scroll wheel, but also in here you can change the radius if you want to. And I think if you hold your mouse wheel and move up or down, whatever. And then the stroke quality surprisingly doesn't do anything to the stroke quality, so I haven't figured that out yet, because this is I don't know what's the difference between that and that. Oh, this is, well, whatever. I have no idea what that does. Maybe that's useful. What was it on 2? I'll just leave that be. Just the FG value is very helpful. The radius and then the soft edge if you want one or not. I'll come to Y later. So now let's reset the strokes. So now we actually can get to drawing. So what we want to do, well, we want to have, let's say, some sort of nice river flowing through it. So you can just maybe a little bit bigger of a river. So you can just kind of draw that through it, something like that. And now we can plug this into our noise. But if we have a look, now it generated the noise only on the river and not next to it, which is kind of the opposite of what we wanted to do. Right? We wanted to have the noise around it and not on the river part, so the outside goes up, and then the river itself stays flat. But since it's the opposite, that's kind of not what we wanted to achieve. So first thing what we can do is we can invert it. So there's a height field mask invert. You see how if I put it here, it's not going to link, but here it's instantly going to jump in between the line, and now it inverted the height field. So this is the height field before, right? This is what we drew, the mask, and then we had an inverter, and what it does, it inverts it, kind of literally. So now we have this height field, but it kind of looks the noise looks kind of, the problem is that it's so far down, so we turn off center noise. Well, now it's a little bit too high, so we can turn this maybe down to 5, or maybe 8, something like that. So now we have an okay-ish river, I'd say. But But if these banks, for example, are too steep for you, if you want to have something like a very shallow river, you can add a blur modifier, a height field mask blur, and then what this does is if you plug this in, then this is then you can kind of blur the outside. And if the height field, the noise is going to be stronger if it's dark red rather than light red. So here it's going to slowly turn off the noise and turn on the noise rather than instantly cut on. So if we put this in between, now the difference is kind of more gentle. And if we now, for example, turn on the blur, it's kind of going to decrease the difference because it's going to gently blur these two lines. So we have like a okay riverbank, you could say. You can modify this even more. For example, you can add another noise modifier here, where like, okay, now the problem is that the bottom of the riverbank is completely flat. Well, I don't want it to be completely flat. So now you can make a second noise modifier, and that goes over the entire area, and you just make it very, very gentle. Oh, a noise modifier up here, you can change it between creating a mask noise, which is this, right? So it kind of just creates different colors and creates a colorful noise, or you can change it to height, and then it creates a height-based noise. The mask noise is maybe later on you want to blur it or you want to invert it, and so you can maybe put down a mask noise and then have some other modifiers change it again. So this now makes it a little bumpy again. Maybe this is already too much. Let's turn it down a bit. So now it gets maybe a little bit more natural. Hey, thanks for the follow. And so now this maybe give it a little more of a natural feel. Um, and there are a bunch of more stuff you can add. For example, a paint modifier can also draw heights if you wanted to. It kind of has the same here layer mask. You can also make it a layer height, and it kind of does the exact same thing as the mask modifier. Now if I draw, it's gonna draw height. If you're gonna increase it, it's gonna so if we wanted to, you can very precisely you can reset the strokes again. So for example, if I would say, this looks all nice, but on the left side, I'd like to have a higher mountain. Well, in noise, you can't force noise to do anything. It's just something random to because nature doesn't look perfect. So a noise is kind of a nice way to randomize stuff. But if you want to have this a little bit higher, you can just put this on some normal level and then just, oh, this is too low. Just be like, okay, let's increase this. And it doesn't have to look perfect. I'll come to how to make it more natural later on. But you can make this, let's say, a little bit. Oh, this is not the most beautiful hill I've ever drawn. But now I've made this a little bit steeper on the one side than it is on the other. Now you're like, oh, Dapolo, this is so ugly. Please save it from being so ugly. Well, I will do that in a second. Because then comes the best node that I've currently so far found in this game. And that is so now if we say that's generally okay, but it doesn't have the natural feel to it. Because noise has a problem that noise is random, but nature is kind of not. In nature, it adheres to very strict rules of erosion and water and gravity and stuff like that. So you don't have very completely random stuff. Like a mountain is not just a random assortment of noise, it has a certain style to it. And to mimic that, there's a very, very helpful node that I found that's called erode. And what it does is what you think it does. It erodes stuff. So it has I would assume, I don't know how it precisely works, but I assume it feels like it has a physics simulation in it. And so it kind of takes this area and lets let it rain for a couple of thousand years basically and see what happens. You can if you look at it, oh, this node takes some time because it's obviously a little bit more complex. You can set the this maybe to 20. Nope, 10. Just to set the height differences. 8. And this is just visualization to make it look a little, so it shows you the different elevations. And now here you can purposefully erode the terrain you created. And that's why you can be a little bit more generous at the beginning on how you, like, this mountain might not be the most beautiful. Oh, it's actually very ugly. Let me hold on a second. Why is this so? Um, um, that's a bit too much, right? Can we please save this mountain a little bit? Make this a little bit higher at the edge. Yes, something like that. Maybe even a bit higher at the edge. Look, I'm no artist. This is fine. And because the erode modifier is going to save everything, because it's basically just going to simulate erosion. Now here you can change if you want to have hydro, like water-based erosion or thermal erosion. It's going to have different effects. And then the global erosion rate is going to modify the total. So if I put this to 2, it's just going to double all of these values, basically. Then interesting are the cut angle and the bank angle. It's kind of how steep it's going to erode. So if you put this very low, they've got a very flat banks, kind of more similar to. So I can put this on 20 and this on 20. Then I can simulate it, which freezes that frame. You can also reset him. Yeah, and now it's going to calculate it. It shows down here that it's calculating, and that's what it's basically going to do. So now it kind of smoothed it out. But it gave us very shallow banks, right? It eroded that very smoothly down, kind of more what a very weak material would have. So, for example, if I would want this to be in the desert or somewhere with loose dirt, this is probably more the modifier I would want to use. But if, let's say, this was a canyon and it's supposed to be more steep, right? Or a rock, then you can turn these up, and now it basically made this a lot the angles a lot steeper, and the banks a lot steeper because it feels already like this is a lot more solid material. These small channels are going to appear, which look a little bit rugged right here because the map is rather small. But basically it simulated water, and then the water created channels, and kind of that's how the path is created, and they flow into your river, which is perfect, which is what we wanted. I think this is a little bit too tough right now. This is not sand, but this isn't pure rock either, so let's put it somewhere in between. This is a lot of try and error. You can also increase the erodibility, how for basically for how long it's supposed to erode, stuff like that. I don't know all the modifiers and what they do. Especially there's an advanced section which I don't know what it does. Oh, this made it a little bit wider here. We can maybe turn on the iterations a little bit to make it not too tough. And this is especially this modifier is mostly just playing a little bit around with it. This erosion rate, let's put this to 0.5. I think this would be a little bit prettier. Like you could probably also reset the simulation if you click the button up top there. I got used to just freeze that frame, and then this technically also does a simulation of how it erodes, but we don't need that. So now we have a kind of, this is also kind of funky, right? It's very flat top, and then it has like a cannon kind of style thing to it, and this side is a little bit flatter. This is okay. It also shows you the river side still in the middle. So overall, it's okay. This erode modifier is very, very powerful, and this is kind of the before it just basic shapes, and afterwards it's kind of the more final terrain. Um, and this is looking already decent. Like I would say this is an okay stuff. It isn't the prettiest, but this is also some to a certain degree due to only using 50 times 50 pixels, so it's kind of a low resolution picture because that's what it uses in Talespire. But we're gonna pretty it up later on. This is definitely fine. So once you're happy with the results, uh, kind of and you're like, okay, I don't want to modify in this brown box anymore. You can go back out to the overview, and now it doesn't display anything. If you click on display height field, it's going to show the height field again. But what we actually want to, as we're now done with editing the terrain, is we want to have the tiles. and then you just press build cache terrain tiles, and that is going to take this height field and it's going to try to generate um, the individual tiles of Talespire um, that fits this height field as best as possible. Um, so if you catch it and it gives us an error, you must save the scene, which is understandable because I haven't understood it fully, but I think that it's going to save um, more files than one, and it kind of bugs a little bit if let me undo yeah. Uh, so you have to save it first. Now it's successfully saved, and now you can build cache terrain tiles. But no biomes are defined. Add biomes to the biome network with edit biomes. This is going to say that. And the reason why it says that is because it's supposed to like spread the tiles, but it doesn't know which tiles. Is it supposed to be snow? Is it supposed to be dirt? What is it supposed to be? It doesn't know. Um, and so we kind of first have to define what it needs to generate these tiles. So we go into edit biomes. Which is the third modifier, and we add a Talespire biome, which is precisely what it says. It's one of the custom nodes as well. Um, and this node is kind of the second big node that, but you ain't gonna be in this. The most stuff you're gonna change is in the terrain node, but this is also kind of important. And in this, you have a couple buttons. You have edit biome objects, edit tiles, edit props. All this stuff is not really important to us now. We want this as a default biome, meaning if we only have one biome, then that's our default biome. Maybe later on I'll go into having sub biomes if you want to have multiple. But we'll see if we can cram this into today. Otherwise, I'm going to do another stream maybe next week where I'm going to go more into depth of the more how I do maps, which is a little more it's the same stuff but more of it basically. But maybe I'll show it maybe today if we have time. But first we're going to start in edit biome objects, and there are none. So now what you have to do is add a Talespire object, which is right here. And a Talespire object, it's kind of precisely what it says. It's just it creates an object that it's a specific node. It was one of the specific nodes that Baldrax added that can take an asset out of Talespire and make it usable in Houdini. Let's say it that way. And so the most important thing we need for it is we need to here Talespire asset UUID. It's the idea of every single asset. You can go to Tails Bazaar and they have a display where you can choose out every individual prop, and it's going to give you the UUID right here. So that's what I'm using. So we go to, let's say, tiles. We want to make this out of, I'd say, out of grass. So we go down to nature, and then let's say the grass 1x1 tiles, and then we copy the UUID, go back in here and paste it. And then up here we're gonna obviously put it to tile because it's not. You can have a prop, a tile, or a slab import. So you can import entire slabs. For example, if you want to scatter trees, but the normal trees in Talespire are obviously, let's say, mediocre at best, you can um, you can add an entire slab as an import, and that then becomes your tree. So if you want that, then you can. It's kind of helpful if you need to do that. So now we've added the grass 1x1. So we might rename this to grass 1x1. It You don't need to rename it, but it's kind of helpful to do so, just because if you have a lot of tiles, it gets very confusing if you don't rename them. And then I think it's this button, yes, and it creates kind of a folder. And this folder is going to be rather small because it's only going to have this one. And we're going to name this folder, let's say, um, ground let me write ground 1 1 because and that is very important. You have to separate your 1 by 1s from your 2 by 1s, 2 by 2s. So this is ground 1 by 1, and then we can kind of copy the same thing, rename this to ground 2 by 2, and now we take, for example, this prop just to have the 2 by 2s as well in there. Go back in here, paste it in there, and it's actually even going to display it if you have the blue ticks on. This is and obviously simplified, but where is it? Was it underneath? Huh, I don't know why it didn't show the small one, but it shows this one. Oh, because I have a spacebar here in the front, and it doesn't recognize it otherwise. Now it displays it as well. You have to be a little bit careful when you copy that you don't automatically, sadly, like copy a spacebar in front of or in the back, because otherwise it doesn't recognize the asset ID. So now we have this one, and we can even add another one, and that would be this one. And they're all kind of grass tiles, just to get us a basic kind of idea. And you paste it in here. That's also going to display as the same, but these are different grass tiles, just so it looks a little bit nicer. And now you have to find ground 1 by 1 and ground 2 by 2s. We're going to write it without a spacebar, just because that's I don't know if it makes a difference. I'll do it this way. It probably doesn't make a difference though. And so now we've defined what we would like to have as ground 1 and ground 2. So now that in this, you can press U again to go out one folder. So if you're in the edit in the Talespire biome, if you go to edit biome objects, you can define which objects you want to spread. You can probably strip space out of that. Oh, sure. That would be maybe helpful just because if you copy it, it jitters out sometimes. There's also a pull-down menu that lists all the prop tiles, but I like using the tail 7 thing. I could probably put a button that pops up that web page. Maybe the button would be kind of helpful. Well, I've by now already have it marked because you use it quite a lot, especially if you change stuff, create new biomes. You need that a lot. But yeah, that might be helpful. Stripping out the spacebar would be really helpful because if you can't really, like, it's very hard to see if you if you have a spacebar in there. So in edit biome objects, you can create new objects that you want to scatter. We can create whatever. We can also create one, for example, for trees if you want to, or we'll do that later. But you can create. We'll add some more, but for now we just need the tiles because that's what we want to do. And it tells us we couldn't. He couldn't put any tiles down because he didn't knew which tiles. Now you go back out, and now you can go to edit tiles, and you can go to edit props. We want to edit tiles, so we go to tiles, and this is kind of there's a lot of emptiness here, which is not what we wanted. And now we right-click again, go to Talespire, and then you have a Talespire tiler, because tiles, tiler, everything is tile. And we're going to import this and add it somewhere. And now you just, I think it only needs one, yes. And now the Talespire tiler just puts tiles everywhere. And then here we can say tile set 1 by 1, and we're going to select the ground 1 by 1, and then tile set 2 by 2, and we're going to select ground 2 by 2. And then by layer, I would, so this is my specific way of doing it. I think it's a very nice way. We can, for example, name this grass, this layer. So now, if we preview this, it's going to show all of this, which is actually weird because it kind of shouldn't. Huh. Because normally it only takes the layer grass and it shouldn't find the layer grass, so I don't know why it's displaying everything. But generally we go back to tiles, no, all the way back, and then into edit terrain again. And now we come to the second part. We can kind of, we can delete this. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Edit terrain. Delete this. We can also delete this. And so kind of what we want to do now is the terrain is generated up here. So down here, you cannot edit the terrain anymore. Um, this is one of the default networks that I fixed as it is missing an input node. Okay. Uh, oh, the tiles network, yeah. But it normally works because I don't need an input network because I'm just asking for a layer, and now I'm gonna rename this layer. So now we can here define the so we can't edit after this X. It means no editing of the terrain. Illegal. Straight to prison. Wait, first let me turn off the visual parts on the simulation because it's kind of messing with my brain. Um, so now no change. So now what we can do is we can define by masks where we want to put what. For example, right now this is empty. So we want to put down grass tiles, right? So what we just do is, well, currently nothing is marked. So if we just invert nothing, we get everything. So now everything is marked. I don't know why it's so gentle in with everything. It could make it a little bit stronger, but whatever. Um, Now everything is marked, and now we can rename this to grass because that's what we named our the layer, and now we can rename grass as well. And we rename here destination. So we now wrote down a mask, right? This is our mask, which just marks everything. And now we name the mask, and we name it grass. And then earlier, and I'll show you in a second again, and then we rename the mask, and then we add the mask to layers, and we name it grass. And now it kind of, we said, okay, this mask, we're going to name it grass, so everybody knows. And if we now go into biomes and tiles, here we're going to ask, okay, take the layer grass, and oh, maybe I have to do this, um, and put these tiles there. And now it's gonna, what it for some reason did earlier, anyways, put the tiles everywhere. Um, and this is only a preview node, which kind of shows off what you're doing. And then you can put this to the output node, and you kind of it feeds it back into the system. So now if you go all the way back out, it's still not going to display anything. But if we click on build cache terrain tiles, it's going to need a second. And then it didn't do anything again because we didn't display the tiles. But if we do so now, we have tiles. For example, we can even, if we just to show you, put the water level maybe at 5. Oh, that's a little high. We don't want to have flood here, right? Okay, let's put it to 2. Yeah, that's the, or 2.5, something like that. So now we have an okay river, right? Done. This already looks really nice. We basically can export, well, it's just a bunch of tiles, but I guess we already have something. But then you realize, okay, well, this is kind of nice, but why is there grass in the river? That can't be, right? In the river, there's no grass. So let's try to put dirt in the river and have grass on the outside. So that obviously there's no grass in the rivers. Let's remove grass in here, but we want to have grass out here, but not in there. So how do we do this? Well, we go back into the terrain node. We kind of, in here, we first marked everything to be grass. Well, we don't want everything anymore. So we remove that. And we instead take a feature. You just type in feature and you get a height field mask by feature. And you get one of those nodes and slap that bad boy right in between. And what a height field mask by feature means is it creates a mask on the height field, and what it masks in the masks is defined by a feature. And what that feature is, you can choose here. You can take a slope, and then it marks everything that is sloped. Let me turn off the tiles just because it's very irritating. Um, you see it marked all steep slopes. Everything between a 20 and a 70-degree angle is currently marked. Well, you can also put this up or turn this down. Look, now it marks more or less. And here you can kind of mark, instead of marking yourself, kind of by drawing, that what we did earlier, here you can define features, and everything that fits that feature gets marked. As we want to mark the riverbed to be dirt, we don't really need slopes, but what we need is height. And here we can define, okay, mark everything below 4.6 high, somewhere between 4.6 and 0. And now it marked all of that. Well, it's a little much, so let's tone it down a bit. Something like, we want to put the water on 2.5, so something like this. And now it perfectly marked the river. So we don't have to be bothered with drawing it ourselves. And the even better part is that this changes dynamically. So if you would go back up here and change something, the mask by feature would still mark this. So if you would, I don't know, create an offspring here, it would so that the river splits or something, it would automatically, since it marks everything that is between 0 and 2.5 height, would instantly mark this as well as soon as it gets low enough. So it changes dynamically. So it's a lot more appealing to use something like this than mark everything by hand. Obviously, it's also a lot faster. So now we mark the river. But since this is into the grass field, we obviously want to have everything but the river. So you put an invert in here again, and it's going to mark everything but the river. And now, as we want to have a second layer, we just copied the two nodes. We can remove the connections; we don't need them. And we take what is here. This is the invert. This is the mask by feature, and we take this and instantly put it into our new mask. This can be deleted as well. You don't need a direct connection down. And now we can create a second mask, and we can, for example, name this mask river. And I didn't mean to click this button. I don't know what it does. Rename this to river, and then rename this. It's a little bit of renaming, but we'll manage. And rename this to river. And now input this here. But here, importantly, this output node can only have. Let me close this up a bit. So it's a little bit tighter. This is way too. So it looks a little bit neater. So this output can only handle one. This only has one spot, so you can only have one output here. So what you actually do is, instead of putting this to the output, like putting this here and this here, that doesn't work. Look at it; it can only take one, which kind of sucks. So what we do is we where did this come from? Whatever, we don't need that. Oh, I think it's old. So what we do is we stack them back to back. So the output of the grass mask we put in here, and then this we add to the next. In which order you do them, by the way, doesn't really matter. It's just, okay, save this layer as grass, then save this layer as river, then go to the output. So it doesn't really matter if you put the river first or the grass first. The order, nobody cares about the order. Whatever you prefer. And so now we name this mask grass and this mask river. But obviously we haven't defined what river means now. So we can go back out and go to edit biomes, edit tiles, and look, now it already adjusted. And it already only removed the dirt tiles. I've got to run. All right, I'll see you. Thank you. Well, by Baldrax. So now it removed the dirt tiles, because now we defined, okay, only grass up here. We want dirt in here, but we didn't define the dirt yet. So just put in nothing because it doesn't know what to do. So now we can add another node, that is Talespire Tyler. You add these two in there. And the interesting part now is we can add, here we can add the river in here, but the problem is up here we haven't defined it yet. So we go back out, go to biome objects, and we kind of create the same thing here. And instead of a ground one, we create a river one, and this is going to be dirt. I don't know what's, oh, it automatically changed it to 2. And then we go in here and we pick the dirt tile, mark this, copy it, paste it in here. And then we kind of do the same thing for the 2x2s. Rename this river 2x2. It only is going to have one dirt tile in it, so we don't need this. We can rename this to dirt 2x2. And then in here, we obviously going to pick the 2x2. It's very important, I think, according to Baldrax, that you can only use 1x1s or 2x2s, and it has to be in kind of the correct order. You can't mix them. But this is kind of fine, right? So now you've created, yeah, he's the creator of the mod, so you can thank him a lot. So when you go back out, it still didn't define it because now we have to go back into the edit tiles. And now if you go to tile set, it says river 1x1 and river 2x2. So this is perfect. Now if you do this again, it doesn't work. But here we already used both of them. So what we use is a merge. And what a merge does, it merges. So you can add 2 of them and then put the one out. It does matter. This looks sometimes a little. I don't know why this one went to the right and this one to the left. It does. I don't know why it does that, but whatever. And now if we preview this, it's going to show a dirt one. And if we preview this, it's going to show us the upper one. And if we preview the merge one, not this way, and then it's going to show us the merge. And this is perfectly what we wanted, right? We have dirt in the bottom and we have grass at the top. This is perfect. So now we have the output that we wanted. And it kind of has like a nice balance between the two. So when we're going back out, display tiles, you can, just for safety, do this again. It's going to create what we wanted. So now we have our tiles ready. So if you wanted to generate some tiles, this is how you do it. You can create other masks if you want to. You can in the terrain node here, you could draw a mask from hand. Just be like, oh, this area, just draw by hand. It should be desert. You just do the same thing. Add desert tiles, then go into the biomes, go into the tiles here, add a desert tiler here, merge them together, and it's all fine. You can do infinitely if you wanted to, but we're gonna keep it simple for now. I think this is doing okay. So we got the nice hill on the left side. We got a little bit more of a flat thing on the right side. That is that. But now it still looks empty. So now we come to props. If you want to put props somewhere, you kind of almost do the same thing. So you go back into edit, nope, all the way out, edit terrain. And now we've edited those two. But we do the exact same process for adding anything else that we might want. For example, if we might want to have, let's say, some flowers. You can just I normally copy. You can also add them new, but I'm lazy like that. Delete the input. You take the output of the last one and jam it in here, right? You always have to kind of stack them and put this out. I wouldn't put this to the output node just because if it's larger, first make all your masks and calculations, everything at the end updated, because otherwise, whenever you change a single input, it's going to recalculate and regenerate everything, which especially with larger maps like this is okay, you're small, so it's going to be kind of fast. But if you have larger maps, it's going to regenerate every time. It's kind of annoying. So you just leave this disconnected. Yeah, it's a warning because it doesn't have an input either, but that's fine. So now let's see what if we want to have flowers. We're gonna so first we have to define where we want our flowers to be. Well, we could just take this. Everything that is not in the water is flowers. Seems reasonable. But if flowers don't really grow on very steep stuff, so maybe we should do the cliffs first, just because that might make more sense. Let's do the cliffs first. because cliffs are more of an essential part that need to be done before you can do flower. Well, you could do it either way, but I like to do the cliffs first. We'll rename this to cliffs. Rename this to, let's do the flowers I'll do afterwards. Cliffs. Delete the, I just want to keep it neat, especially if you grow bigger, it's going to get kind of annoying. Rename this to cliffs, whatever. Rename this to cliffs. And now we already learned the height field mask by feature. And that's kind of what we want, because now the top one is actually very, very interesting. We're going to take the top node out here. And now this is a lot more attractive, right? To mark all the slopes. That's perfect. That's just what we wanted, because right there is where our cliffs are supposed to be, right? So you can adjust the height. I'll always crank it up to 90, because otherwise, if there's a very steep one, it's not going to generate cliffs anymore, which is kind of off, right? You want to have it up to 90 degrees, so up to literally vertical. Overhangs you cannot yet at least do in this generator. And then the minimum angle you can vary. I normally stick to somewhere between 20 and 30 to generate them, depending on like if you would rather have steep, like just steep tiles, or rather have cliffs there. I think this. Let's generate some more cliffs and go with 20. This is rather on the high cliffs. Like it generates now cliffs for even rather low angles. And now that we've defined the mask, you can add the mask here. This is going to stop annoying you. So the exclamation point is done. So you rename the mask to cliffs. Then you add the mask to your layers. It's not going to display here. None of them did, but they're only going to display here. Don't ask me why. And then you put it to the output. So now we've defined the cliff mask. We go back out. And then first we need to go into the biomes and add our cliffs. So here we can copy again, make this neat. Okay. And now we go back in here and we grab our cliffs. So nope, I misclicked. Go in here and then to nature. We're gonna take it. Let's just go very traditional. Go with this one. And now we obviously change this up here to a prop, because it's not a tile anymore. Add the ID, and it's instantly going to generate that. Because it's still named river, and it's going to add it everywhere where a river is, but we named it cliffs. And then we can rename this cliffs large. And just to be safe, we can add in here another cliffs small. And we take the, where is it? The slightly smaller, like a pokey-ish rock. Is it this one? But that looks so dark. This is fine. Let's take this one. Take another boulder, copy this ID, and then add it as a small one. If you want to check if they're okay, some assets actually, if you pop them in, they kind of gotta get displayed. Some of them don't. They just give you boundaries. There's a smaller one. All good. I would highly recommend, for example, to up here's a small button. You can recolor them. It doesn't do anything, like it doesn't change the program, obviously, but it helps you visually to know what is what. Like now it's very easy. Okay, that's grass, that's dirt, that's cliffs, right? It helps you visually remember it more. You can even change the color of individual uh, nodes if you wanted to. It just keeps it more organized for you, especially once they get bigger. It gets kind of confusing what is what. And so now we've created them. They haven't added up, because now what we did in edit tiles, we kind of have to do in edit props as well. It's exactly the same look. There's a preview node down here. There's this node way too far down there. And it kind of does the same. Except now we obviously take the Talespire scatter node instead of the tiler node, because now we want to scatter it instead of the tiles that are precisely placed. You're going to put this as inputs. You can also create masks layers in here. I like to do, so earlier we did the cliffs, right? I created a cliff layer with the angles and then saved it as cliffs. And now here I'm gonna take a mask layer and go here and take cliffs and grab it kind of in a sense. You could also just create a mask layer in here that nothing is hidden, mask by feature. You could also do that here. But I try to keep all this as minimal as possible and have all these set up permanently. So in this biome folder is my complete biome. And I generally, if I create a map, I don't need to touch it because I'm only going to define where my masks in the train node for this specific map. And then in the biomes, here I'm just going to link it, just be like, okay, take cliffs and then scatter cliffs on it. Done. And that helps me that I do not need to open this at any time. So I have everything in the train map, which for me at least I think is a lot cleaner to have, so that my biomes are kind of permanent and my terrain is the one that I'm going to modify whenever I do a new map. But if I have, let's say, if I do 10 maps with the same biome, I don't go into edit biome at all. It's identical at all. If you want to do the masks in here, you might have to adjust them for every map. So it, in my opinion, is then more work. If you just have a little small link, then it's kind of simple. I don't know what instances does. I have no idea. It can be deleted probably. It's always just annoying. So now we take the scatter cliffs, and now it's scattered the cliffs wherever we needed it to. We don't want them to stick to the surface, so now they're going to actually be placed where they need to be placed. And now down here, so before we had a tiler, it's going to put a tile where a tile belongs, right? Tiles don't get scattered; they have one tile in every spot. But if you have props, you can scatter them around. And here are the inputs you can use to scatter stuff. For example, you can increase the density, which means that it's just going to pump out more stuff. And now it's more cluttered. And if I turn it back down, it's less cluttered. Look, this is very little. This is a lot. The outer radius, I think, defines the distance between them. So if I turn this down to 0.2, it also creates more. I do not like. Look, this is now a bunch more. But if I turn this up, they're going to get very few. And they're going to scatter like further away from where they needed to be. And if you turn this down, they're going to create more. So obviously you want to have some nice cliffs here. Then you can have a fall off, meaning how like to the edge of the masks, how far do they fall off? If you turn this, it doesn't in this mask doesn't really change that much for some reason. I like stuff like this is a lot of just try and error. So just play around with it a little bit. When it looks nice, it looks nice. And then down here you can have mask cutoff, which means that if you define a mask, you can draw the colors, right? And they're somewhere between red and let me go out and go into nope, all the way out at the terrain. You see the masks. In the middle, the dark red that's 100 or 1, and then the lower the lighter the red, the lower the value. So this is probably like a 0.2, so 0.1, and then the complete gray is a 0. And then if you go into the props here, you can define up to which number it places props. So if you crank this up to 1, it's only going to place them where the mask is all the way at 1. If you turn this down to 0, it's even if the mask has an ever so slight red value, it's instantly going to it's also going to place stuff there. So it's kind of going to enlarge the mask a little bit. So you can put this here. Iterations is something where it removes some of the props again. I think if they're inside each other, but I'm not sure. I just play around with them until they kind of look nice. But this, I haven't understood these three. Just play around with them until something looks nice. This one is kind of handy, and that allows for how much rotation do you allow. For example, if you turn this down to 0, they're all going to face exactly the same direction. They don't have any turn to them. All the props are exactly identical. If you turn this up, now I allow to have 70-degree movement in each direction, and 180 means 180 degrees in each direction means 360 degrees, so it can be any random direction, which in generally is what you want if you create any um, any flowers or stones or whatever, generally you want them to be rotated, but there are some things where you might not want them to freely rotate. For example, if you want to make a riverbed and there are plants in there and they always face one direction because of the current of the river, then you might have something like, okay, I only want them to wiggle a little bit, but they mostly should face the same direction. So in that case, you can play around with this. The seed just gives you a seed, and I don't know the rest. The stick to surface tiles is it's gonna look funky if you don't do that. Sometimes it looks better, but yeah, you want to stick it to surface. And then here is why earlier I said, okay, the water if you put the water, if you're all the way out here, you turn on the water. Um, you could actually, if you enable water, and then later on, um, in here you can say scatter on water instead of terrain. And then instead of putting it all on the terrain, it's going to put it on the water level. And that's why sometimes it's useful to put to have a look at the water level. And that only has the rare occasion. For example, if you have those sea roses that you want to put on top of the lake, they don't want to be scattered on the terrain, right? You want to have them on top of the water level, and you want to scatter them there. That's when you use scatter on water instead of terrain, and that's the only use case where displaying water and put it in the right position and stuff like that is actually useful. If you don't have any lakes or you don't want to scatter anything on top of water, which is rarely the case, um, nobody gives then it doesn't really matter. So now that this looks okayish, but this sticks out very high on the backside. What the hell? But this is so no. This is so funky. Why is this? Why are they below coverage? Well, now I just popped out a bunch of them. I do not know why the top one is working just fine, but this one is just bugging out. And I do not understand why. Let me check the added biome objects. Cliffs large. Scatter weight rotation. Auto. So in here, there's some things you can also change if you want to. For example, these are the individual objects. You can, let me display it so it's a little more clearly. You can, first of all, the scatter weight defines within a group with the seasons. Well, yes, this is basically how I do my seasons as well. Um, it you just define multiple biomes that are slightly different, and then it's going to access one time, let's say, a piece of snow and scatters it. And when I change the biomes, it's going to, instead of grabbing the snow, going to grab some leaves and scatter them. So this is how this is how you can do the seasons. And so what you can change in this problem modifier, you can change the rotation if you want to, so that they all face. If you want to have them all face one direction, if you want to let them rotate in ways it doesn't it doesn't really need it. Then you can reduce the ground level. So this is ground zero, so it's going to scatter it. This is the base. So if you, for example, I had the problem earlier. I wanted to have the top of the new there's this new corn, right? Please show me. This corn. And I wanted to glitch it into the ground so that 80% is underground, because this kind of looks like a flower if you just have this top thing. But this all needs to be in the ground. If you want to do that, you can just change the ground level all the way down, and then it's kind of only the top is going to stick out, and that's how it's going to scatter it. It might be really helpful. Thanks for the follow, Grimbeard. And then why height vary? You can even, if you when you scatter it, you can change the scatter values. So by default, this is ground level, but some of them should scatter between 0 and -1. And now when I scatter them, all the scatters are going to have a randomly be glitched into the ground somewhere between not being glitched into the ground and being into the ground by one tile. Um, So this is very, very helpful. One tile is quite a lot. But for example, if you plant flowers, you can put this to 0 and this maybe to minus 0.05 or something, like very slightly. So then when it scatters it, it's going to place them somewhere between 0 and 0.5. So it's going to scatter them slightly at different heights. So when you look over them, it doesn't feel like they're all exactly identical at the same height, but rather that they slightly vary. That goes for any flower or bush or something like that. You can slightly scatter them in different heights, cacti, whatever. So that might be a useful feature in here. Allow random tile rotation, you can turn that off, then obviously it doesn't randomly rotate anymore. Um, I do not know what that does. I don't know what that does. I do not know what that does. But it doesn't matter. Like I don't think you need it. So yeah, you can vary this stuff if you want to. And then the scatter weight means that. So I am currently, for example, scattering this cliff group, right? And right now, both of their scatter weights are at 0.5. So they're going to scatter equally. But if I, for example, turn this down to 0.25, then the scatter weight of this is double of this. So whenever I scatter, let's say, 3 objects, it's going to be 2 times this object and 1 time this object. So it's going to scatter this more often than that. They're all relative to each other. So if I also turn this down to 0.25 as well, then they're going to scatter equally again. Because they have the same value, so it's 50-50 again. So it's all only relative. So I can also, if it's both 0.25 or both 10, doesn't really matter. As long as they're identical, it doesn't matter what the scatter rate is, because it's relative to one another. But this might be useful, for example, if you have a flower field. And for example, my flower fields, I think the purple flowers are a little bit too bright, and um, they stand out quite too strong if you have a lot of them. It makes it look way too bright. So what I normally use is I use these as flowers when I glitch them into the ground, like I said earlier, and both of them, and put their scatter values at like maybe 0.8, and then I actually do take the purple one, the standard flower everybody knows, and put that scatter value though on like 0.2 or something, like a way below. So then it does scatter it, but it's kind of a rare thing that every now and then you'll see a purple flower where you see a lot of the yellow flowers, and I think that's a lot more realistic. Like it doesn't look as crazy because you don't have like a bazillion purple dots everywhere, and I think that kind of looks a little nicer. Um, and yeah, so that's what you can do in here if you want to, and then the scatter weight kind of changes that if you have multiple in there. Now I do not know edit biomes. I do not know what is this scatter? Why does it scatter half of it on the ground and half of it up here? This does not make any fucking sense to me. Let's increase this a little bit so it stops lagging so much. Um, and it perfect, like I've never had that happen. It perfectly splits them. So generally, what I would do is first build cache trains again. If I've done that, then force recook everything. Edit biomes, refresh biome. If I've done all of that, you can save the file and then instantly open the file again. Now it's going to load really quick, and then maybe that fixes it, because I don't think this is normal. I have no idea. Um, yeah, I think now nope, it didn't fix it. This is some funky shit. Okay, I'll delete this. Let's try this again. Scatter. I'd scatter, Talespire scatter. Come on, go in there. And we take the cliffs biome. Now it's only on the ground. That's even weirder. Terrain. Yeah, this is not on the ground. And now it glitches them all back up, but I normally stick to surface tiles. Um, if I turn stick to surface tiles off, then it goes up. It wait, I can maybe check this really quick. Talespire biome 1, biomes 2. No, this is all correct. So this is what it should do even if I turn stick to surface tiles on. I don't know, then it should stick it to these tiles, not to the ground floor. I don't know why it does that. That's kind of funky. But that's fine. We'll just leave it off, and then we put this to cliffs again, and that's kind of okay-ish. We can maybe increase the density a little bit. I'll reduce the outer radius, and we'll set them all down because I think they're sticking out a little bit too much. So we'll go to biome settings and get the large cliff and maybe put it at -1, something like that. And now if we display props, it's gonna, oh, we didn't put them here. We obviously didn't put them to the output. Obviously that's not gonna work. So now it's kind of showing me this, which is okay. I don't know why there's missing one there, so I might increase the the prop count a little bit. The density maybe to 2. I am so confused by this. And then, but this is okay. It's a first bump. And now we've created the first kind of scatter. And now we can keep going. For example, we could say, okay, we go back to editoring, and here we create all the masks. Let's create one more. Let's copy this again, and then add this in here. And now let's say, okay, we want to create some flowers. Well, but so where should the flowers go? Let's say they should go everywhere where the grass is going, right? So this node, but they shouldn't be on the cliffs because if it's stone, right? We don't want flowers on the cliff. So we add the feature height by feature, and we add the terrain node. So this, oh, maybe let me really quick turn this off just so we can see more clearly what it's doing. So now we take the height field here, this one, and what we do is then we ask a mask by feature. And now what should the mask by feature do? Currently it doesn't replace, so it just overrides whatever it's done before. But we can also add or subtract things. So I want to subtract stuff. So now if we see here, it's going to mark even the cliffs here. And now I take this mask and remove all cliffs from it, which is then what this does. Maybe lower it a little bit to look kind of nicer. This one is just an old one. Oops, I didn't intend to do that. I wanted to remove this. They just existed from the copying part. So now it removed the cliffs here because there are no cliffs on flowers. And now let's say we say, okay, this is a very high mountain, right? So we don't want any flowers up in the mountain because it's so high up, flowers can't grow there. Let's say that. Then we add this into another height field mask by features. We say subtract again. And this time, instead of the slope, we take the height and we like oh, I have to display this obviously. The maximum height, smooth radius 0. So for example, we could say, okay, up there, that's way too high. Can I sharpen this edge a bit? Oh yeah, I can. Up here ain't gonna happen flowers. That's way too high for you, right? So I can add a minimum height and a maximum height, and so it's gonna mark everything between the height of 6.3 and 27, which doesn't really matter because it's above the map. And then it's going to subtract that from whatever came before it. So now we have this mask. And now it's going to put the flowers everywhere, but the cliff objects, they're probably going to be very large. So even if this isn't cliff anymore right here, it might still have the stones there. So it's going to be kind of weird if the flowers glitch into it. So maybe we want some safety distance between here, between the cliffs and the flowers. So now we can get an expand height field mask expand, and it's going to do precisely what we think it's going to do. It's going to expand the height field. We shrink it. Yes, obviously it's so now we can do maybe 0. Just a 2. Oh, 2 is already too much. 1, something like that. So now we shrink the entire thing by 1 tile. There are also some other things this can do. You can blur it, for example, then the line gets a little blurry, like this. And you can blur it even further, something like that, which might be useful as well. So we can maybe shrink it by 1, and then if you want to go really crazy, you can be like, okay, but next to the cliff it's more rare, so let's get a blur. It's if you could type in blur, shrink, or expand, it's gonna always spawn the same node, which is kind of weird. Like this is gonna name expand and this one blur, but if we click on this one, it's exactly the same. It's just the modifier in here is changed, so it's kind of weird because you can change it in here anyways. And if I put this on expand now, this is an expand one. This one isn't. I don't know why you can add it 4 different ways, even though it's the same thing. So we can put this on blur, and now we can reduce it a little bit. And now it's going to even blur that, so slowly they're going to come more and more flowers. We can add this again, and then add the last one to here and put this out. Oh, we have to rename them. Almost forgot. Can you please turn this off? Name them flower, and name this one also flower. And then, we should rename these ones flower. Flower. Oh, no, not flower to cliff. Mask to flower. Okay. Now we renamed all of them, and the same thing starts all over again. So we go back out. We can go to the edit biomes, edit props, and nope, edit biome objects. First, we got to add some flowers, obviously. Copy this one, just because it also has one. Now we're gonna name these flowers, a flower. I'm gonna name this flower 1, and I'll actually grab the flower I showed you, this one, for example. You can grab this. Let's do the flower bit I told you we're gonna do. Add this one. Put this one to prop, obviously. Then copy it, paste it, and we can do the same thing again. Grab this one, paste it, and then for one last one, we'll grab the typical flower, right? The flower, the purple one. Where is it? I'm always so confused. This is so zoomed in. There, this one. And we gotta add this flower as well. This does not look right. Let's go back. This does not look like a complete 36A. I didn't mark the 3rd row. Obviously, this is never going to work. Okay, so now we added all of them. We can show this one. And now the problem is this one isn't displayed. This happens, for example, missed part of the cornstalk. Yeah, I did. On construct 1 ID as well. No, construct 1 is fine. Yeah, yes, I missed this one. Thank you. And now we can we have all three of them, but now we know this one's going to be too high, right? And it doesn't show it itself because only some of them are integrated, so you actually have a model. But this is obviously too high, so we put this down. Oh, that's probably too much. Say 0 minus 0.8. Oh, I changed flower 2 and I'm looking at a flower 1. That's never going to work. That's probably not even low enough, so let's go maybe 1.3. Yeah, something like that. It's a trial. We'll see later on when we export it to Talespire. The same goes for the other one, minus 1.3. And then for the scatter weights, we have 0.5 here, 0.5 here. So let's tone this down maybe to 0.2. This is the third flower, the purple one, just so it's a little bit more rare. We don't need to put this one down because it's already the right size. So now that we added the flowers, we can go back to the props, do the same thing here. Take this, paste it, just to get a second one. You could just open the second one, but I normally rename these as well. So this one is cliffs, this one is flowers, just so, and then maybe even go, this one is green and this one is gray. Oh, we didn't even rename this one also. Nah, that kind of yellow. I guess yellow does it. Now we should put these on yellow as well. And now, if you zoom out a bit, you can here change this to flower as a scatter set. And now it's going to scatter the flowers, but obviously it's going to scatter them over the cliffs. So here we also going to select flower, and now it's going to scatter flowers everywhere. That's maybe a little bit excessive amount of, like, I do like my flowers, but that's a little excessive. So we're gonna maybe turn down some more. That's a lot of flowers. That'll be fine. So now we scattered flowers everywhere. Look, this one doesn't do the weird bug. I am hella confused. And then in here now that we have two, we're gonna do the same thing that we did with the tiles. So we're gonna do a merge, and we add this to the merge, add this to the merge, and then add the merge to the output, just so we can have multiple. And now in the merge, it's going to only show the scatter thingies, but because for some reason there's no preview in here, maybe it was the instance thing I deleted earlier. I don't know. It doesn't matter. You can display them individually like this. And now we have flowers. Now we've got some flowers. We've got some cliffs, and now we're like, how does this actually look like a Talespire? So we can export this. And normally I do partially exports multiple times in between to just see how stuff looks like. So now you go to export. You can pick the slab size here. Maybe we can even go up to 50. Then we can display current slab bounds. So it's going to show us which slab is going to get copied. This helps us a lot if we have, for example, larger boards. Then we might, and especially if we have a lot higher quality, like a lot more assets on per area. You can't copy the entire board at once because obviously it's not a slab anymore. It's board, it's way too big. So you can copy it in parts. Here, for example, you can, if you take the slab size down to 10, the slab is a 10 by 10. By the way, if you're in the viewport and press 2, it's going to go in a top-down view. If you press 1, it's going to go back to the normal one. This is the first slab, and now you can use registration marks. I'll show you why in Talespire in a second. Let me start Talespire already. And then you can say copy slab and advance, and it's going to copy this slab into your temporarily copy thingy, and it's going to move on to the second one. So now we go into Talespire. And we're going to open a new map. Create a new map. And then Control V, you just paste it, and it's going to paste. And on top of that, at the bottom, it's going to give you these red marks. And these red marks are going to help you. So now you go back to Houdini. You say copy and slab and advance. So it now copied the second one, moved on to the third. Go back in here, copy. And now you can lay these next to each other, and you know they perfectly align. And now you go back out, Houdini, copy, slab, and advance. Go in here, Control V, place it. Go back to Houdini, copy slab and advance. I'll just do this one row. And now the last one, and so we have a full row. I actually fucked up the one in between. I overlapped these two. That sucks. Well, whatever. This should be fine. And then the other option is for those of you who have installed the multi-copy slab upgrade mod, then this is highly recommendable if you create anything larger, because as you already seen, it's kind of painstaking to even just create these to even create just this small board. I'm already on row 2. Like it's gonna. Oh, and maybe I should close this and start the modded version. And now this one will have the multi-slab paste enabled, and I'll show you why this is very, very helpful, especially for larger board. It's almost needed. Now we can display. Yeah, we can leave this on, but we turn the registration marks are these red marks at the bottom. If we have multi-slabs, don't need them. That's why it says not needed for multi. And you just press once on multi-copy slabs. Requires a mod. You just press this once, and this sometimes has to run for a second, but only if it's a very large map. You go into the modified once. And the nice thing is that this is a mod, but obviously since it's just a paste mod, it's still going to work with vanilla. This is not what I wanted to open. It's obviously going to work. It creates a vanilla map afterwards, so it's just a normal map, even though even though it uses a mod to create the map, it's not a modded map. It's a vanilla map. We can go to the unknown realm we created earlier. I'll just really quickly delete all of this. And now instead of Control V, we're going to press Control and S. And now look at this. And we're done. So what it does, it automatically one by one copies all the slabs, but all of them together, and it pastes them all together. So now it's just one button. Like before, if we had 10 by 10 and it's a 50 by 50 map, it would have taken us 25 copies to copy all of it. Now it's one button. So this is why the multi-slab copy mod is very, very helpful. Especially sometimes like the more high detailed seasons maps I've created recently. They're so high detailed I could only create copy slabs of 4 by 4, and it was 100 by 100 field. So it would have taken me 25 per row, meaning in total it would have cost me like 625 copies. So 625 times I needed to open Houdini, copy something, open Talespire, paste it 625 times. As I'm way too lazy to do that, I just did the multi-copy tool. It's one times, click on multi-copy, paste one times, and you're done. And it perfectly created this. And it created perfectly what we wanted, right? These are kind of sort of glitch into the ground, so we have some nice nice assets here. And the mountain looks kind of scuffed because it's sticking out too much, I'd say. On the back side, as well as like the front side is way too steep. Because of this weird bug, I don't know, you shouldn't have this. I don't know why it did this normally. Normally you just click off the stick on tiles and then it'll be fine. For some reason it do it for me. And now we can obviously pull up the water and we kind of have an okay-ish river. Obviously we can keep going. So the difference now between this very simple map and a more advanced map I made is just how often do you repeat this process. So now let's, for example, we can now go back into edit terrain, use, let's say, the same mask here that we used for the flowers, and copy the bottom part, and we can add trees as well. Tree. And then obviously we're going to take this in here, and yes, it's going to take the same mask, and then in here we're going to rename it to tree, and here we're going to also rename it to tree, and now we have a tree mask that we can also put out, and then we can edit biomes, edit props in here. We can add another one that is called trees. Trees, I don't know. And then scatter set trees. It doesn't exist, the scatter set yet, but that's no worry. And it's going to get over the trees. I will add it to here. And now we can go into edit biomes, edit biome objects. And instead of flowers, we can add it. Well, I'm not going to name it trees. I'm going to name it TR. Because if I name it trees, it's going to already react with the layers and it's going to instantly scatter it. So whenever I change something in here, then it's going to lag. And I don't want that. For example, we could, this time actually, let me show you how you can biome. I'll just grab a simple tree. So this is this is the seasons biome I created, and these are the different seasons trees. So I'll just grab a small one just because the big ones take forever to load. So you just mark a small tree, copy it. So you have it in here. Go back to Houdini. And then instead here, well, you rename it tree one. And then instead of prop, you got to name it slab import. You paste the slab in there and click on decode. And now it's going to use the tree. Let's just use one tree for now, just because otherwise it's going to go. The trees can get very big and hamper your performance quite a bit. So now that, oh, I should name this tree now. Trees, that's what I named it. Go back, edit props. This should now use trees, right? Please generate trees. It has the save. Or maybe maybe I can now try the refresh biome. Yes, there we go. Well, that's, first of all, we have the problem that they're into the ground. Why is that? Because I was so foolish to copy the flowers that were glitched into the ground. So it also copied their value. Move them back up. Now, these are small trees, and that's rather a lot of them, even for my style. That's a little too many, trees. So let's go into this. And now let's turn down the density maybe to 0.1. Now that's a little bit better, right? Oh, that's still, so this gets at the end a decent amount laggy. You can maybe turn up the radius a little bit. Yeah, you can 0.0 up. I don't know what happens if I put in 2 zeros. Oh, that's a little fewer trees. Maybe even 0.02. Ah, that's a little too little. Okay, that's some trees along the riverside. And now if we can go back out, and actually down here is multi-slab offset. This is a very rare use case, but right now I can show it as well because it's kind of handy. And what this does, when you paste a multi-slab, since you don't paste it yourself and it auto pastes, it's going to paste it in the middle of the map, so at 0, 0, 0. If you want to offset that for some reason, then you can, that it doesn't paste it in the middle of the map, then you can offset it here. For example, right now, I don't want this to be offset at 0, 0, 0, but at 50, 0, 0. And now if I multi-copy it and go back into the, go back to the unknown realm, right? That's the one we've been using. Yes. And now, if I would have had it on 0, 0, 0, it would have pasted it exactly over the first one, right? Because that's where the first one was pasted. But now that's at 50, 50, 50, it's going to paste it right next to it. Because it's going to, instead of 0, 0, 0, it's going to take 0, 50, 50, 0, 0, so that's right here. And it perfectly actually hits because I know that this is 50 wide. So if I space it 50 apart, then it perfectly matches. So now we have the same thing, but with a couple of trees on it. And we could keep going like that, basically forever. You can now add, let's say, some stones in the river. Make a feature, a height feature mask, name it river stones, and then add this add stones to a group, name it river stones. Go into the props, add it, and you're basically done. You can do this indefinitely, basically for however many you need. Now, if you want to change seasons or change biomes, I can get a bit into that. So this is the basics. So right now, I'd say if you just want to have the basic, this is the basics. Now you can basically create a map. I'll keep going with some more stuff now if you want to have some more pro techniques, I guess, which are rather simple. You can keep going. For example, right now we have one biome in here, and that is the let's go up, edit biomes. We have one biome, right? And that biome is the default biome, and it is going to take all the trees out of that biome and everything. Now, if you, let's say, want to have different seasons or want to have a desert region within a woodland region, something like that, would be kind of nice, you need multiple biomes. And if you want to do that, you can just, let's say, copy that biome and create a second one. It's going to take a little bit because it has to actually copy quite a bit. Okay. And now we have two biomes. But this didn't cut it because, well, actually, we have to take off default biome because we can't have two default biomes. I don't know what happens then, but it says only one. So let's listen to Baldrax and only use one. But now what we can do is, well, we can define this as our default biome, add a sub biome 1, and then as a sub biome node, we're gonna go in here and if I enlarge this, we're gonna have Talespire biome 2. That's Talespire biome 2. Click accept, and now it's going to use this as your sub biome node. And now you can have two biomes. So this biome now needs a biome mask layer. So this layer we're going to name it, let's say, autumn, because let's say we want to do an autumn version of the same map. And we're gonna rename this to autumn. This needs some time because you're gonna also need to change the name in here to autumn. But now we have a biome mask layer name, and that is autumn. And now if we create a layer in edit terrain in here, like we have now, we've got the grass layer, the river layer, the cliffs layer, the flower layer, the flower tree, my naming stuff, tree, add tree, that's fine. And now we also can make an autumn node. In generally, how I did it, since so far I haven't mixed my seasons yet, I'll just, this is getting already very messy, so that's why you need to clean up normally, because this is, look at this is messy, right? And why is this so far down? Make this a little bit bigger. This doesn't need to be connected here. So we can make just an invert height field mask invert, add this in here, and now it's just going to mark everything. And now we can make the entire map fall. Just why not? So now it's a fall map. And we have to obviously rename everything to autumn. Let me actually copy this. This is the smart way, the pro way to do it. Paste it here. These are some pro techniques right now. And then add this layer in here, just so we have this, you know, it keeps going down basically. And now we have an autumn mask as well. And now this autumn masks grabs in edit biomes. It's going to use whatever is in here instead of in here as the props. Now, this gets a little bit tricky because it's going to use the edit biome objects out of the autumn folder, but it is not going to use the edit tiles or edit props. So the only thing it does now is it is still going to use the edit tiles and the edit props from the main biome. The only thing that changes now, it doesn't take, if it says in here, grab ground one, it is not, if it has autumn at the same time, it is not going to grab this ground one, but it's rather going to grab this one, this ground one. But it still has to be defined in the main biome, the edit tiles and the edit props. So in the other one, you can basically delete all this again. You don't need it. You don't need this either. You can just have an input and an output. I don't know if you can even delete those. I normally just delete everything else. And if you can already see, it didn't change anything. Nothing has changed because everything is still running out of these two. And the only thing you need in here are the edit biome objects. You can change those. For example, what I would do now, if you want to make this a little more autumn-like, then, the first thing you have to remember, oh, hey, did Black Wolf Magic get back to you? Yes, she did get back to me, but she has still some stuff to do, so she won't be, we won't be collaborating until maybe a couple of weeks from now. But yeah, she did. That was a great advice. And so the important thing is, as in edit tiles, you said that it's going to take ground one by one, and it's going to take river one by one, and in edit props you said take the scatter layer is named flower. The scatter set is named flowers. The scatter set that in this one, in the summer version, is named flowers, also has to be named in this one flowers, because they're accessing, they're using the same scatter set. The scatter set is always accessing flowers, and the only question is, does it take the flowers from summer or does it take the flowers from autumn? And so yeah, she's still working on a really large board with Oddity, but I figured she might be. Yeah, she's interested as far as I can tell, but she has to finish that stuff first, so it'll be some time until we do stuff together. But maybe it'll happen. Um, And so and then, for example, for the ground layer, the ground scatter, it's the same ground scatter. It's going to access ground one. It says take everything from ground one by one. So you cannot rename this to autumn one by one, because then it's not going to find it. It has to have, all of them have to have the same name. You can change the name in here. This one you can change. This one you cannot, because the scatter node accesses ground one by one, and it can change the season, but it always has to have the name ground one by one. So when you copy the thing over, you cannot change these, and these groups have to be identical on all your biomes. You can leave them empty if you want to. For example, if you want to have now snow, you can add a dummy snow group in all the other ones, and then in the winter you can actually put something in there. But you have to have the groups everywhere, or at least you have to have them in the main biome and in the sub biome you want to use it in. You don't have to have it in all sub biomes technically, but so let's say now we want to make this autumn, a fall version. So what we could do, which I always currently do at my, we change the flowers to this one, because this one is kind of like a, like a flower in fall. And since and I would assume all of them look identical in fall, so I remove the others two, and instead of the three different flowers, I only scatter this one that flower, and this is going to scatter now instead of all the normal flowers. And then in the tree section, obviously, I would go back into into my biomes, and now I would grab the fall version of the same tree. How I created the same tree, how it looks identical, is I create the winter version of the tree, this one. Actually, Barry did, but she created these for me, and then I created myself this tiny subset that has exactly the same shape as the fall subset, and copied it all over. And then I took this entire thing, go onto Tails Tavern, paste this entire slab in there, and said, replace this by this, and then I get this tree. And it's perfectly identical. It has the same shape. So now that's how I can have 2 times the same tree with a fall version and a summer version, and they have the same shape, same everything. And the winter version just doesn't have anything on it, but it's still the same. So we copied the, did we? I think we copied it, right? Let me copy it again just to be safe. So we copy the fall version of this. And then we go back to Houdini. And in the tree section, we're gonna paste the fall version and decode it. And now, if you've realized something, if you paid attention, I can show you even better. We can export this now again. We offset this by 100, just so we see all the different ones, right? So we paste them all next to each other. And normally this wouldn't maybe be recommended if you do a big board. It's gonna lag like crazy, but this is a small board. It has little stuff on it, so it'll be fine. And now if we paste this next to it, we're gonna see a problem. Because these tree positions are not identical to these tree positions. Look, here in the corner, no tree, in the corner, tree. Right? Two trees next to each other, not two trees next to each other. Right? There's like 5 trees on that side, and here there are only, well, there are also 5, but that's random. But you see my point, right? They're not in the same position. Which is fine if you, for example, only want to release the fall version of the map. Completely fine. Nobody will notice. Because how they're supposed to know this is a different one than the summer version, they're never going to notice. So if you just, for example, from the get-go want to have, let's say, one map and it has a desert biome and a summer biome or whatever, nobody will ever notice it. It just matters if it's the same, if it's you release 2 times the same map and it has different seasons on it. What we can do, well, first of all, you can also mix different subbiomes if you want to. If you just go into the edit terrain, and then here the mask invert. Let's say you can use a paint height field, and you're gonna oh yeah, this is the problem if you mark stuff while everything is rendering. So now I marked some stuff on the right side, and it's gonna invert it, and this is now the autumn map. So if I go out now, multi-copy, nope. I want to have a new one. Multi-copy everything. Go back in here, and if I paste it now, it should paste, please. There you go. It has the summer trees on the right side and the autumn trees on the left side, which for, let's say, a season is questionably useful. I would kind of agree. But for example, you could put a desert biome on the left side of the river and have a jungle biome on the right side or whatever. But you can create any masks and have both biomes on the same map at the same time. So if you wanted to do that, especially if you have, let's say, a canyons area or a desert area and I don't know, something next to it, it'll completely be doable. You can set up different biomes like that, and they access the same folders. But now this one already has different one than these trees, but the same as these trees. Confusing as fuck. How do we get rid of this? And the thing I figured out is that the scatter modifiers are gonna scatter with new random values, depending if it's the main biome or if it's the sub biome. Okay, so if it's the main biome, it has one scatter set. If for all sub biomes, it has a separate scatter map. So my now very high-tech pro tip to this is don't have a main biome. So what I do is I go back into my edit biomes. I copy this. Yep, took some time. I'll rename this, let's say, to summer. Oh, it has to calculate some stuff for some reason. Come on, hurry up. Okay. And then, oh, yeah, this one, remove default. I think this is probably because it's bugging, because 2 default nodes is a bit too much. And now the interesting part is we can turn these all off. Here we can also remove the subbiome, and now this we can name it dummy, and we make this the dummy biome. And in this biome, we have the autumn as a sub-biome, and we also create a sub-biome for the summer. And now neither of them are the main biome, summer, except. So now this I can color always to make it simpler to remember. Yeah, that definitely helps and that's not confusing at all. And then I have my dummy on blue, just because no season is blue. And now we have one dummy, and they access the summer and the autumn version. And what that helps us do now is if we edit the terrain, let's get rid of this just so it's one thing again. We have an autumn mask, and we can copy all of this and rename this summer. Copy. Name this. Copy this, please. Paste in here. Summer. 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 Now we create a summer mask as well, right? This creates a summer mask. This creates an autumn mask. And for example, if I go back out and go into edit biomes, here we also have to name it summer. And now what we can do is if we go all the way out, it doesn't display anything because Talespire subbiomes edit tiles. Nice. Oh, I think I have to do this. Oh, use a subbiome. Yeah, use a subbiome. That should do it. Obviously, use the market use a subbiome. So now, in here, the autumn one is connected. This one is unconnected, so it doesn't do anything. So now, this all is going to create an autumn map. This is the autumn version. And the good thing now is, if I change this, I only have to go into edit terrain, grab this summer mask, connect it here, and that's what I mean by you only need one click to change the season. Now it's a summer mask. Because now I removed the autumn mask. It doesn't exist anymore. I added a summer mask everywhere. And now it automatically picked all the summer assets and created a summer biome. It changed the flowers, it changed the trees, and now it's a summer one. And now it's an autumn one. And I could obviously do now this third thing with the winter one, and then it'll be the same thing, right? It'll add a winter one. So that's how you can create different biomes if you want to switch them up, for example. And now you can also see that the trees are identical. They're perfectly in the same position at all times. It's the same trees at the same position with the same rotation. So this enables you to perfectly copy biomes. So now you could, if we now take the autumn mask and we go back out and we multi-copy this, we should probably put it at 100 and do something funky here. This should work, right? This is not where I wanted to paste it, I think. Nope, I wanted to paste it here, so, well, whatever. So now this one has, look at the trees, right? So there's a triangle here and then there are two down there. And if you take this one is also the same, but now, because now they're all subbiomes, so you don't get the original biome anymore. But now if I get the edit terrain and add the summer mask on top instead of the autumn mask and go back out, add this to 50, 50 offset. The offset thing is just, you don't need it. But it's just now to show it off, but when you need like 10 boards next to each other. The 3 and 2 down here, and 3 and 2 down here. So now, and we have these flowers, and perfectly, like I could literally show you every single individual flower, and for each flower that is here, in the exact same position, you'll find a flower here. And now, obviously, you can scatter the leaves on the ground or more stones, but the idea is always the same. You scatter, you make masks on where you want to scatter. So you make a mask where you want to scatter. You define it as a layer. Then you say on that layer, I want to scatter this group of objects, and then you define the objects you want to scatter. That's it. Um, and then you get to generate something like this. Now, um, if you do this, and the only difference between, let's say, a map like this and like the completely like way overkill maps that have way too many things in them, like this one, and the difference between this one and this one, the only difference is that here I scattered more stuff. I scattered the leaves, I scattered mushrooms, I scattered the fern thingies, I scattered big trees, and I scattered a few small trees. The houses are done manually afterwards. After I've done all of that, I've created the houses. Same with the road signs, stuff like that. I do create the roads by myself. They're automatically. I scattered that stuff. All the water plants, everything is scattered. The bridge is hand built as well, and then it's copied for all versions. So now, if you go to all versions, it's gonna have the same bridge, but it's just manually built and copied. So I can't scatter that. Um, and so the only stuff that so you should by now know how to build this entire map except the road, right? Everything else should be doable for you now. The road is a little bit tricky. I don't know. Should we go into this right now? Do you guys want more now, or should I do another stream at some point and I'll explain the like do 2.0 kind of thing, and we go into roads and whatever stuff I figure out until then. Um, because the roads are a little bit tricky. I'll show it really quick now. And so we can stay here. I'll just open. So you kind of understand where this is going right now, right? So you kind of know how to build this. Um, if you if you do this a bunch of times, I'll not go into roads today. Let's say it that way. It's too. It'll take us another hour or two just to build a road. The roads are not easy to make. And then I'll just show you really quick what the normal biome looks like in the end. I'll just open um, a normal file of how my biome looks right now, just kind of to show you how what I do now at my biomes is exactly the same as we did here today. There's no difference. The only difference is that I do it like 10 more times. That's it. And I cleaned it up a little bit, so it's just specifically for you. So now you can maybe understand it a little bit better. Yep, I need to scatter some stuff. So here there's my training grounds, basically. So there's a lot of stuff that needs, since I don't understand the scatter mechanic perfectly, there's a lot of times I'll just, oh yeah, if you load a new one, just build cache terrain tiles. You have to recache that, otherwise it's going to look funky. So I just have a tiny map that is 10 by 10, and it has a slope. And here I can scatter different objects and try out different objects. Here I think I was working on a snow mask to have a volumetric snow, which is nothing else, just a scatter of a bunch of snow things, and I can show you how it kind of looks like. Copy current slab. Let's go into the one we had today. So oh yeah, this is like a grass vision of it. Like, does this look good or not? It kind of blends the terrain tile so you don't see the dirt anymore on the side, but I'm not sure of it. I made a map in that style today just to show it off. Maybe I'll use it, maybe I don't. I'll publish the map maybe later today or tomorrow. But in generally, that's kind of what I do in here. And now I still have one terrain node. This is it, nothing more. You can't, by the way, change the name. I tried to, and it bugged everything, so don't do that. All this looks identical. You remember that. It's 10 by 10 right now, 3 stack, normal export stuff. everything's identical. Now, if we go into edit terrain, this is a little more complex. So what I have now is this is the standard setup. In generally, I paint everything that is hand painted is marked red, bright red, because the reason is that whenever I change something, I have to recache the strokes. Otherwise, the information update doesn't pass through it. So it's kind of like a dam of information. It doesn't let anything pass until you recache the strokes, where through these it gets updated automatically. So whenever I do an update, I can instantly see, okay, this one, and this one, I'll have, these are manually drawn things. I have to click on them and recache the strokes. And in order to see that easily, I marked all of them red. And then there's a mask blur, a mask noise, and a mask clear, just to, right. Oh, let me turn off all of this stuff and this stuff just to make it not so cluttered, right? I drew a little bit, then I put a blur on it just to blur it a little bit, and then a noise, and then it's just a simple thing. These are the roads. I'm not gonna go into them. I basically they are copied from somebody online who made a tutorial on how to build roads, how to blend roads into height fields, and they are basically auto-generated. And I don't understand this stuff. Somebody literally like wrote some code in it. I have no fucking idea how it works. It's just I draw stuff in here, and then it changes roads down here. So that's all I know. And then, but that's not important. Like this line goes straight out here. That's the important part. And then comes the masks, right? The first one up here, seasons. That's perfectly what we said. Height invert. It marks everything. It names it summer, and it saves it as a layer named summer. This one is then winter, and then this one is autumn. Basically, precisely what we did 3 times next to each other. I just showed you 2. This is 1 more time. I had these little boxes down here too, so I instantly see the name because this is kind of cluttered. But it's basically the same. And I always connect them to this one node down here. So this one's now connected. Now it's not. Now it's a winter version, and now it's a autumn version. So that's kind of the idea. Then here is I mark rivers by hand, just like we did today. By height field actually. So just like we did today, we mark it by height field. So we just say the ground level is rivers, and it's going to add it to kind of split it off, add it to rivers. It's going to invert it, so it takes everything else and add it to ground A. There's a ground B, but I never use it because I think dirt as a normal ground is kind of ugly. I don't like it, but technically I could add a ground B, but so this stuff I don't change it much, if at all. So there is a ground B, but I rarely use it. Then it takes the input as well and puts it into cliffs. You get a height mask by mask by feature, depending on the angle, 22 to 90, like I told you. Same thing. Rename it to cliffs. Then trees and debris. You take a split out of here, and then it takes the rivers. The rivers here that we marked here, and it's gonna make some the rivers, are they inverted? Height field, no, they're not inverted. And then noise, and then expand it a little. Oh, yeah. The noise is gonna. It's a weird noise because it adds I don't know how to add 2 masks together, and this noise actually doesn't add any noise. What it does, it's gonna add streets and rivers together, because on neither of them I want to plant any trees. And if I just add both of them in here and put the modifier on add, and don't add any noise to it, it's just going to add 2 masks onto 1 mask. Then I expand that mask to get like a safety zone around the river and around each street where you shouldn't place any trees. Then I have cliffs where I also don't want any trees. I add that. Then I invert it. So instead of marking everything where instead of it marks the trees and the streets and the cliffs, and then it takes everything but those. Then I can add clearings. This is one of the hand-drawn masks. I can manually draw. Okay, here I want to have a clearing in the woods to have some lush area, like the first big map I published, Crossroads, right? It had this big tree on this wide open, and the tree's manually added, and this wide open clearing. That was I drew this in here in this mask. It's handwriting. You just draw. Oh yeah, this is supposed to be clearing. Dot. Um, and then this adds it to a tree line mountain, where this is another height one, where I can say, okay, this is a it's normally turned off. It doesn't do anything, but I could turn it on and then say, okay, at very high mountains, don't put any trees there, because there's a tree line at high mountains where eventually trees don't spawn anymore. So I could turn this on and get a height, get one there, um, and then it's going to take the default input, um, put some noise over it. Um, I think this is invert, so it marks everything. And then, oh yeah, this stuff, it's very interesting. So this is going to mark everything because it's an invert. And then this one is a mask blur, and you can shrink everything by 2. And this gives you kind of a cutout around the edge. This is very important because if you spawn a tree right at the edge, it's going to copy the tree and plant the trunk at the edge. But since the leaves are going to go over the edge, it isn't going to copy it. And so it's just going to be like half a tree, and the tree's like literally cut off at the edge, which I think is ugly. So I just make a clearing of like 2 around the entire map, 2 tiles. No trees are going to spawn. If you look at any of the more recent maps, no trees are 2 tiles from the exit, from the border of the map, just because it bugs it when I copy it. If you make it by hand, technically you could, because you can, if you have the tile at the bottom, you can make it lean over the edge of the map, and that wouldn't be a problem. But since the copy function here doesn't allow it, I'll make a clearing around the entire map so it doesn't spawn trees near the edge. Then I merge the not anything on the edge and everywhere where it's supposed to plant trees, and that's tree A. Then tree B are small trees, like the ones we copied today. And they can be close to the edge because they're so small, it doesn't matter. And I don't have a tree line for them because I didn't add one. Then there's large debris and small debris that gets everywhere. That also doesn't have any of that. And then if you put it over here, you have 4 times of vegetation. That is ferns, flowers, mushrooms, and the how do you call the Schilf in German? It's stuff on the high growing things that are like in shallow water. I don't know. That's these Schilf. That's what Schilf. That's what it's called in German. Um, hell yeah. And so this and then here it's gonna take everything without the clearing. So right, no rivers, no streets, no cliffs, but on the clearings there's still gonna be flowers. So it's going to take those, and then it's going to add a noise to it. So I don't want to spread the flowers randomly. I want to have patches of flowers. If I show you a normal map of mine, it's going to get clear. So it doesn't. I don't spread. I don't spread flowers everywhere. I make a noise mask. So you see, this is not evenly spread. There's a noise layer that creates like these patches of flowers, because I think they look nicer than an even spread of flowers everywhere. And that is what this one does. It creates noise. Like a height noise, you can create a mask noise. This one does a mask noise. And then uh, um, and then there's a touch up. Touch up just means it by default doesn't do anything. But if there's anything that I don't like, I can. There's a version here that is that I can change. So if oh yeah, this one noise is ugly, it's too big, it's too small, whatever, I can manually change anything. But interestingly, if you have a paint that is hand drafted and you have to update the recache strokes every time, you don't have to do it if there's nothing drawn on it. Then it auto updates. It's just if as soon as you do one stroke, you have to manually update it. If there's none on them, don't have to do it. But default is always empty because it's just a touch up if there's for some reason something ugly with the noise. Then this is the flowers. They get the same height fit mask noise, and then they get an additional one, and for them I boosted um, on the clearings. So the flowers spawn very rarely if there's not a clearing, but very often if there is a clearing. If you go in here, there's a decent amount of flowers here. Like there's one, two, three. Like there are a few flowers here. But if you go into the more coveted woods area, it's very rare that you see a flower. You see mushrooms, but you don't generally see flowers. There could be some. I didn't turn it off there. There's one. But in generally, it's a lot more rare to find a flower in the woods than it is on the clearings. So that's why there are a bunch of flowers here, a few flowers in the tree sides, and that's kind of what this area does. It just and vegetation B is flowers, then vegetation C is mushrooms. They also have the same thing, and then maybe I should add a bigger map, load a bigger map. I don't know, so you can actually see stuff. This is not helping. Um, but yeah, then I spread the mushrooms. Then shield fight is just a height by mask by feature, and it's gonna mask all the. It has a very slim. Um, so only in shallow angles, because on steep angles, if there's a cliff coming out of the water, I don't want to have anything in there. Only if it gets shallow out of the water, so up to 22 degrees, which is rather shallow, it's going to put them. And only between a very slim area, because it has to be in only from shallow water to shallow land. I want them to spawn. So that's why this is very slim. And then I randomly spawn the stuff there. Next, we have ground cover, which is in the winter times, it's volumetric snow. In the fall times, it's leaves. And in the summertime, I've thought about um, doing this stuff that I showed earlier, this stuff, but I'm not certain if this is good or not. I'm currently like I made a map. Okay, you wanna see where's the mountain lakes? This is a preview, sneaky preview. I'm guessing my PS2 was the issue with with your board. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen any other issues with it. I can't reproduce it on my computer, so it's hard for me to change anything. Um, so this is the new map I created, and I'm still judging whether this kind of grass tiles are nice enough. Just like a small map with like a chill out area with some firewood and a simple bridge in the mountains. Um, so yeah, you can judge. Do you think this looks better? I don't know. Um, yeah, the, I'm still a work in progress. That's why I created the maps. I don't know, but in generally, this either um, puts leaves, snow, or grass on the ground. It has it first. This noise doesn't do noise. It adds multiple together. It takes the streets and adds them on top of the clearings. Remember, we earlier. Uh, you like the grass coverings? Okay. I'll release this map. I'll see how it goes. What people think. I'm indecisive because it also adds more assets to it, and I'm trying to save assets in recent times because Princess Popcorn reminded me that not everybody can load like a bazillion assets. So I'm unsure if I should do that. Um, I'll see how the reception is. I think in this map it shows it really nice because it's this like I thought about it of like this the between two high mountains like the mountain peaks even have snow on them. Um, you have like a high area where there's almost no trees, right, and they're only small. Um, so actually, this map has very few assets just because there are no trees. But if there are lots of trees, then this would make everybody's PC burn again, and I get complaints. Um, but yeah, so here I add back. So the clearings we took we take, and remember earlier we removed all the trees, all the streets from it because we didn't want any trees to spawn on the streets. Well, now we add the streets back in because we want the snow and the leaves from the fall on the streets. We don't want grass on the streets, so I'll have to probably turn this off when I use the summer version. But the summer version is brand new. I haven't done that. Like I've done this earlier today, so this hasn't been integrated in here. Um, Then you expand the mask to make a little safety net, because there's no problem with, for example, having some leaves fall into the water. There's no problem with that, I think, or with them, or with them on some cliffs or something like that. So I expand the map a little bit to be rather on the safe side, so it doesn't cut off anything. I blur it, so the area from where there is leaves and where there isn't, or where there's snow and where there isn't, is a little more gently. Remember that I still the clearings don't have any leaves on them, because I start with the after the clearings and I add the streets back on, but I don't. It's still no rivers, no clearings, and no cliffs. Um, and then there's a touch up, meaning I can manually change it. I want to of bouncy rock has plans to optimize. They will optimize bigger boards. Just really quick. There's a patch that they are working on. I already reminded them because I kind of need it. And the idea behind it is that currently, if you look at anything, it's gonna permanently render everything that is on your screen, not just what is in your field of view. So, for example, if I'm behind this, but I look in the direction of the board, it is gonna render everything behind here as well, even though I can't see it, because the camera doesn't do a line of sight check. So even if I don't see any assets, it's going to animate all of these assets. My GPU is rendering all of them, even though I can't see them, because there's no line of sight check. And they are planning on adding a line of sight check. And that would enable, for example, if you have a tree, you don't see the back of the tree, it's not animated, especially if you have larger trees and there are a lot of assets wasted in the middle, you don't see any of them. If you have buildings, it doesn't animate, it doesn't render the inside of a building while you only look on the outside. So that is supposedly in the works, though it's on the time frame thingy, it's like in planning mode or whatever. So yeah, I wouldn't get my hopes up anytime soon, but that is supposed to come, which would be a great improvement for large boards, because it's a very inefficient way currently to render stuff. But yeah, so we have a touch up here. I don't know why there's an invert. This is, I think I tried out some stuff that obviously this wasn't designed to have an invert. And then you have the ground cover. And then last but certainly not least, you have underwater stuff. And then you just grab the river asset from the beginning, and straight up to underwater debris. And then you get the empty map and get a height field mask by feature. But this height field is lower. It goes -5 to -2.2. And then the normal one, um, that's turned off. Oh well, never mind. But this one's normally deeper, because the underwater plants are rather tall, and it's these plants in here, and they're rather tall. So I don't want them to spawn in shallow water. So even so, the height field, the mask by feature here is set to very low. So only the deepest areas of the river even gonna spawn these plants, not the shallow ones. And it's going to make some noise over it, so they spawn in random batches instead of everywhere. And that's my underwater plant. And then it always names it underwater plant. And like all of them have the name ground cover, vegetation D, B, C, B, and A, tree A's and B, and like they're all just underneath here created. And you see also how, just like we did earlier, it also always going to move this to the next layer. And then I tried out some stuff with ground cover, and so here earlier I showed you I worked on the leaves and the grass, so I took this as an output, so it didn't need to waste rendering time on underwater plants, because I knew that there was no underwater, but the computer still tries to find some underwater, and that takes some time. So normally if I would finally render something, I would put it here, but since this was just a test map trying out some stuff, it was on ground cover mask. And then if we go to, that was the editor, right? If we go to biomes, you see the biomes like we did earlier, a main biome, um, and then a forest, autumn, winter, and summer. There will eventually be a pinewood, multiple ones, and then there will be a desert one and stuff like that. They'll all be come down here. So far, I have only these three. And as you see, they're all sub-biomes of the main biome. And as we did earlier, if we go here into tiles, nothing is there. They're basically dummies. Oh, this stuff sometimes randomly spawns, and I still don't know why. And then same goes for this one. Like, everything is empty, because they don't need it. Only this one needs it, and that one has the same stuff earlier. It has the, I don't know why this is so splits so weirdly. It doesn't need to be that way. I have never bothered to change it. And then it goes into the ground tiles, the river tiles. So we can actually go there, not there. I don't know why we have two here. I think this is an old version. In the new version, you only need one input. And then this cluster fuck up there. I don't know why it spawns. But this is the main biome. And then these are then the subbiomes that actually have all the props in them. So if you look here, these are my props. So it's just the same what we did earlier, right? Ground A 1 by 1, ground A 2 by 2, ground B, and then river. And then I have small debris, and these are just some, or this is even just a prop, small rocks, and then the large one is like a bush I created. I can even show you the bush. So before I create a biome, I have this board, and then these are the bushes. There's a small bush and then there's large bush, and then I've created three versions: there's summer version, an autumn version, and a winter version. Um, um, and the yeah, I've created, so I defined it for everything beforehand, right? So when I created, these are the trees, all three versions, and then for the yellow flowers, what happens in summer, what happens in autumn, and what happens in winter, they're just gone. And then mushrooms, they don't exist in the winter, and then same with the plant, with that plant. With the rock, there's a snowy version in the winter time, and there's a normal version for the other two. And then the golden ones are which are identical across all. They're just straight up copy pasted. They're completely identical. They exist in all three biomes. There's no difference in them. And then the same goes with the big trees. There's a fourth version which I just needed, which is kind of the true version. It doesn't matter right now. So they're basically, I only use these three versions. These I only need to create the other three. Because these are hollow at the middle and these are not. These are kind of the full body versions, and I cleaned them out afterwards for efficiency purposes. And yeah, so these slabs are then here, ground debris is 1 and 2, and then these are the 6 trees I have, and then the three small trees, vegetation A, B, C, D. Underground plants, I have 6 for some reason. They all look identical, but they're slightly different heights. And then maple leaves as a ground cover. And then down here we have cliffs, street, trails. I won't go into those. I might do another stream, but it's an entire stream to just explain these two. And then underwater debris for like stones and rock, like some branches and stuff like that being underground. And then if you go into another one and look at this, it's perfectly identical. It has exactly, I literally created one and copied it over. They're absolutely identical. Most things are like, this is now a snow thing. So the items are slightly different. The rock is still the same. The bush now is a winter bush. The tree is now a winter tree. So they have some changes. The shelf is still the same. Underwater plants are the same. But it changed some minor individual items, but the layout identical. And if you obviously go to summer, identical. Um, and it needs to be that way. It's perfectly identical. Actually, in this case, and that is a recommendation to all those of you who want to build like a more complex map, getting a new and updated terrain generator will save so much time on the useless area. Yes. So what I plan on doing is maybe release this, but yeah, you can't really share biomes. That's the problem. So even if I wanted to, I can't give you them to you. So you kind of have to create them yourselves. I think Baldrax is working on a version to share them, but it's not really possible because it grabs like items from different like parts of your computer and whatnot, so I can't really share them. Um, so you can't just copy this and paste it in Discord or whatever. But what I highly recommend everybody to do is if you want to build larger maps, your main biome, um, have all your objects in there as well. You could leave this empty, as you always define summer, winter, or autumn. You don't need in your main biome. It's never defined as main. It's always one of the three, right? So you don't actually need anything in here. But what I do, I always have everything in here, and everything is almost identical except trees, because trees are like 90% of the rendering time because the trees are massive. They contain, for me, the summer trees are around 600 individual assets, so they create a quite a bit of a choke, and it needs a lot of loading time. So in my main, I have exactly the same. stuff as usual, so I can kind of get a feel for everything, see how everything looks. Except the trees, they are simplified to a simple prop. It's just like a default, like these. I don't know. It's just one of these default trees that you get. Um, and the thing with, like, I think it's this tree. And the thing with that is that now I can just update and generate and iterate a lot faster. Keep up the great work. Thanks. I try. I might even do a second stream. And so I create a very simple tree here, and then when I generate stuff, I can just see how it looks. Actually, now I'm fucking done having all this. Do I? This will take some time to load. Whatever. I'll load it. So this helps me whenever I just want to have some quick updates, see how the trees scatter, see, or especially if I don't want to look at the trees, if I want to see how the mushrooms scatter, or the flowers or whatever. I can have everything rendered, but if I turn off all other seasons, it's going to grab the main biome, and with the main biome, it's going to grab that tree, and that's super simple. So the time it needs to load is a lot faster, and everything looks a lot simpler. And then when I'm happy with how all of that looks, then I'll just once use the actual biome, um, and it's going to get the big trees going, and then I can copy it, right? Well, now that I know that you're not. Hell yes. No, I'm not annoying. Okay. I guess that's a compliment. uh, yeah, I saw your community day stream. It looked kind of fun. Looked like a chill kind of session. Um, so this is going to load now for sadly a while because I actually do want to show you how the different biomes look in action, because this was a bad example. Kind of it didn't have anything in them. Um, and then I can just show you how I normally first generate everything with the main biome, and it's very simple. And then I add it and have multiple other. So this is the map. This is how it looks like if you go all the way out, not all the way out. Um, if you unmark it, it looks kind of, well, there are a lot of big trees, right? This is actually the, wait, why doesn't it? Oh, it has to generate that. You see the terrain up there? So there's no tiles here because the build cache, it's literally a cache. It's, if you load a new map, it doesn't update. So now I have to build the cache again, and then it will put the map, instead of having, I can't move it right now because it's loading, but it has a small 10 by 10 from earlier, it has on here, and it's got to now update it. This is going to take a little bit longer because obviously this map is a little bit bigger. This is 100 by 100, and it has a lot of assets on it. Especially now with the snow version 2.0 with the volumetric slow I recently added. Um, yeah, that's kind of true. Uh, I fully agree. Um, yeah, so this will take some time. I hope it'll be done. 50 seconds is kind of long. Um, but then you'll see how, like, this is how a map generally looks in the end. At least like my maps, which have like way too many assets on them for anybody to load, as I realized recently. Um, so if this would finish loading at some point. There we go. Boom. And now I see how it loads everything. Um, this is apparently not the winter version, or this might be the summer version. I don't really, we can just check. Go edit terrain. Oh, this is the uncluttered version. Look, this is before I did the cleanup for you guys. Right? Before you guys were coming on the stream. On this is, I think, Friday or something. Look how messy it is. No coloring. No nice boxes, nothing. Uh, just bring you with a strike. Yeah, we have that tendency of making way too big maps that nobody can use, but they look nice, so it's something. Um, so here's the same thing. Look, now the autumn is currently turned on, and it has a base like street, river, ground. Like the street is deleted now because I have a different way of doing it. But the ground A, ground B, trees, cliffs, ground debris, vegetation A, B, C. Like it's just the same, but I haven't cleaned it up nicely. Um, and now Now you've seen the mess I normally work with. And then there's an empty version next to it because don't ask questions. But the thing is now it generates very, very complex trees, blah, 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 absolute pain. But if I delete this and I just take the empty branch kind of and add it, obviously it's now going to need a minute to load. But what it's going to do is it's going to have the exact same scatter. It's going to add all the stuff on it. But it won't have a bunch of way too big trees that consist of multiple hundreds of assets. So with this generator, you can toy around on a bit, but it needs some loading time. Like I tried to create a map that was 500 by 500 tiles with this level of detail, and it wasn't a good idea. I don't know if I deleted all of them. I think I did. Yeah, I deleted all of them. Because basically what happened is there's a one limit asset count in Talespire, and I got to the limit after about it loaded. Like after I multi-copied it and I pasted it, and after about 5 to 10% of the map, it crashed because it had reached the 1 million asset limit. So yeah, that didn't work. So now I'm back to so 500 times 500 is cancelled. It also was a pain to work with because now, like, look at these loading times. These are already annoying, right? And now it updated it, and if we go back out, look how now this looks a lot simpler, right? And this is now it's a lot smoother. If I change anything, it loads a lot faster because they're simple as trees now. This is now a tree. This white block, and it doesn't look as nice, obviously, and you have to keep in mind that the main trees are way bigger. And so it's kind of you have to remember it, but it's kind of a nice way, and that's why I have these. Oh, here they're even look. Now you see all my unclean stuff. Um, that's why I have this main one, which is just like a normal tree, and 800 by 1,000. Dude, that's even like double this. No, it's almost quadruple the size of what I planned. Damn. Yeah, no, I haven't even tried. Like this is gonna fucking explode if I do that. Um, it was already like 500 by 500 was already a pain. I ain't gonna try 800 by 1,000. Like people are going nuts, and then everybody who wants to play with it is just. I feel like all the creators who make maps are just like, let's go bigger, bigger. Um, oh, feet, not tile. Okay, 800 by 1,000 feet. Okay, that's divided by 5, right? So it's like 200 times 180. Yeah, that's like I think I can. I ain't gonna load it. Like where is it? Um, I don't know. I don't know if I've even removed the dude. That file was explosion pure. It was way too many assets. It looked kind of nice. It was like a river, like two rivers coming together with a big lake and like an island on the lake and stuff like that. It was a good map. I liked it, but yeah, it was not for the faint of heart and not for any computer to see apparently. And now you see even here that there's not the inn and not the bridge is also missing. Um, yeah, I think that is. I gotta go. All right. Thanks for stepping by. I'll catch you on. See you. Um, so yeah, this is about it. I think all that I wanted to show for today. Um, um, I so the only so now you should basically be ready to create simple maps or any maps. Like you could technically create the maps I did just with the knowledge I told you, except maybe the streets. I'll try to schedule another stream where I go. So I did basically do try to find out new tech by the every day almost. So I might have some new tricks up my sleeves for next time. So I might do another stream at some point, maybe in a week or so, and I'll try to go into the depth of how to make streets because that's a little bit more complicated because you need to even the terrain for that. Look how here, like it used to be a normal cliff, but then the road cut into it, so it's a steep cliff, then flat for the road, and then a steep cliff again. How you can do that? And that's auto-generated, so it's not done by hand. So you just basically say, oh yeah, I want to have a road this way, and then it automatically perfectly creates, um, like you see perfectly the slopes here, like steep cliff, flat, steep cliff. So I'm going to tell you how you can do that. The spreading of the stone is very simple, but how you change the terrain in a way to do this is very complicated. But I'll show you this next time, and maybe all the other tricks I'll find out by then. For example, yeah. I hope this kind of helped. I hope to see at least, let's say, how many people are here? 6 people. Like 5 new maps by tomorrow. In the Talespire Discord, right? Because you all generated so much stuff. Yeah, cool. I myself will release one more map today, probably. I'll try to like it's done. I just have to like do pictures and write the text and blah blah blah, like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was it. I hope you learned some stuff and you enjoyed the stream. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.